This is Brian Wade. He is our certified sports psychologist at the Endurance Edge. I am Chris. I am the lead dietitian and head coach at the Endurance Edge as well. And I am handing it off to you. How to calm pre-race jitters. We all want to know. So tell us.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. And yeah, I am going to be wanting to hear some feedback from you all, especially right here at the onset. So please utilize that chat box. I don't know if audio is enabled for you all, but you can also just speak up and use that. And if I'm not looking at the camera, it's because I'm looking at the chat box on another screen over here. But yeah, pre-race jitters. First and foremost, let me just go ahead and debunk any type of myth, if anyone's ever told you that you can get rid of them, right? Because you can't. If you're a human being and you've got a heartbeat and you're alive on race day or the night before race day, you're going to experience some physiology in your body that a lot of people define as pre-race jitters. So what I have found and what I've always done with any athlete or anyone that I've ever coached is try to get them to understand that this isn't about turning these mechanisms off. It's about essentially creating a dimmer switch for you in your body and dimming them down to the point where they're just not as maybe negatively impactful as they were before. The reason why we don't want to turn them off is there's a lot of goodness that comes from these physical manifestations of the jitters. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But first things first, like I said, I want to engage you all. And so that first question that comes up there, how do you all experience the pre-race jitters? What are some of the things that you feel? And everyone's a little bit different, but we're all human. So we're also a lot of the same. But tell me from your perspectives, what are your pre-race jitters that you feel? And this could be moments before or an hour before or whenever.
Well, I know I'll speak for myself as people start to type into the chat box and the experiences that I've gotten from other athletes. We get a lot of people who come to us for nutrition counseling thinking, oh, why are my bowel habits not so hot on race day or coming up beforehand? And oftentimes it's not what they're eating, but it's how they're managing their energy, so that's totally your wheelhouse. But you got the flutters and all kinds of things can happen for sure. You chat box stuff.
Yeah, so we got increased heart rate, IBS. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, visiting the Porta-John multiple times. That's always fun.
Yeah, getting too hyped up, so excess energy. And then, yeah, you go flying out of the gate with way too much and just throw pacing and everything off for sure.
Adrenaline's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It really is. So even concerns, right? So even though concerns are thoughts, we get the physical sensations of concerns and second guessing and doubts and worries. That's good. Any others to come across?
Yeah, you guys, type them in. Engage. For sure. I know I'm always kind of like, my hands are shaking. You kind of got that sort of standard, like kind of pacing a little bit, jumping up and down, kind of shaking out that extra like nervousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot of commonalities that we see there. The cool thing is it doesn't matter if you're getting ready to run your 30th Ironman, your first Ironman, if you're getting ready to tee it up, on Sunday at the Masters. These are all the same exact sensations that we all feel when we're getting ready to go into an event that we think is a big deal, something that we think is important. And then here's an interesting question, the second bullet point up there. When do you all start to feel these? When do you start to feel this nervous energy or this increase in the heart rate or the concerns and the stomach issues?
In my experience as a coach, I hear it as long, particularly for my Ironman athletes, I hear it as far out as 3 weeks. That's when they start to panic,
Yeah.
So
that's interesting, Chris. So you say, up to 3 weeks, and then we've got comments of the night before, right? Mm-hmm. And then we've got comments of the morning of, right? And so this is where we find a lot of individuality on these symptoms is in the timing of them. They're all going to hit us in different ways, but when they hit us is very, very interesting. The earlier they hit you, the better, because the more time you have to learn how to manage them and become more self-aware and learn how to self-regulate. The closer it is to race day, the more limited we actually get in strategies that we can implement to really try to control them. So that's why it's important to do what I always call a trend analysis. Go back and look at all your previous races, or if this is your first race ever, and this is your first, quote unquote, big event ever, right? Think back to other things in your life, maybe a big presentation you gave at work, a job interview that you did, going on a first date, whatever it might have been, and think about how nerves maybe presented themselves for that event. More than likely, those same types of nerves are going to present themselves for this. So you conduct that trend analysis and you say, okay, what are my feelings? What are my symptoms? And then the more you are aware of them, then the more you're able to actually do something about it leading up to.
Very
and
cool.
So final question, and then all of our brains are nice and warmed up and engaged, is, so what does all that mean? What does all that mean to you when you feel these things start to kick in? And Chris, as a coach, you probably hear this a lot from a lot of the clients. But when people start to say, "Oh man, I'm feeling that my heart rate go up, or I'm sweating, I'm pitting out like crazy. I just went and used the porta potty 3 times in the last 30 minutes." How do you all perceive that? What's going through your head when all this is happening to you?
Oh, my head, I'm going panic. Partly because the Porta John line gets full. I've actually had pre-race nightmares of like being late to races because the Porta John line is so long. Like I can't go because this line is so long, and then it's panic, utter panic.
Yeah. So kind of actually like a second order effect, right?
Yeah.
Not so much, oh my gosh, why am I having to go to the bathroom, but more about what am I going to do if I'm stuck in the porta potty and the gun goes off? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So worry I'll burn through my pre-fueling. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. All that glycogen you just put in, and now it's starting to go out. For sure. Adrenaline. Nice. And Brian,
Okay.
when you want me to hit slide, just let me know.
Yeah. So the most common experience that we have when these things start happening to us is the oh shit, right? Or let's see, Kellen says you skip the line and then at mile 18 in the marathon, you have to stop because you just had to drink that whole bottle of water before the race starts. Yeah, very good, very good. So yeah, the most common response when we feel this is essentially a generalized idea of, oh shit, like something's wrong with me. I'm not ready. Why am I this nervous? What's going on? Even if you've done multiple races in the past and run into the porta potty is just a part of it, we can still get overly frustrated with ourselves thinking that there's something wrong with me because I'm experiencing all these things. And that's because we have been socialized for a really long time to think that if you see someone and they are running to the bathroom, they're sweating through their shirt, you can see their heart, pounding through their shirt, they're maybe throwing up, they've got the nervous jitters. You look at that person and most people say, that person's a train wreck. They're absolutely just a bag of nerves. When in reality, couldn't be anything further from the truth. And the reality behind it is the body is turning on mechanisms and it's turning off mechanisms to help you. And so if there's one thing I really want you to walk away with is that the pre-race jitters are not happening to you, they are happening for you. So Chris, go ahead and hit the next slide, please.
Yep.
So let's look at what some of these common symptoms are. And I put symptoms in quotes because symptoms has a very pathological kind of definition behind it, right? Oh, you've got symptoms. Well, symptoms are usually indicative of a disease or something. And that's not what it is at all. The fight or flight response in the body is an amazing thing. And we need to learn to embrace it. There's been tons of studies that have been conducted that talk about the embracing of nerves or the embracing of the idea of stress. And everyone knows the placebo effect is the most successful drug ever, thought of or created. It's the same thing with stress. If you perceive stress and nerves and adrenaline as a positive thing, something that's happening for you, well, guess what? You will find a way to make it facilitative for you. If these symptoms start to happen and you feel that they are debilitating, well, guess what? Your body will find a way to make them debilitating for you. So let's look at some of these common symptoms and let's talk about why they're happening for you versus to you. First one, heart racing, and we can actually lump that in with breathing changes. So usually we get a more rapid intake or we start to maybe breathe a little bit more shallow. So ultimately, you know something's coming up and you think it's a big deal. The brain has not really evolved a whole lot beyond our caveman, cavewoman predecessors. And so big deal to it is life or death. It doesn't care that you're just getting ready to go run a triathlon or a marathon, which for some of us may be life or death. But the brain just still says, wow, big deal, life or death. Okay, I got you. So it increases your heart rate and it increases your breathing rate. Why? Well, we want to be able to pump more blood to the vital organs and to the musculature of our body so that if we're fighting or flighting, we have the energy to do so. We increase our breathing rate so that we can get a flush of oxygen up into our blood so that it can fuel our system and so that we can get a lot of oxygen up to the brain so that we can think more clearly. Why do we sweat? Why is this sweating happening for us? It's our body's natural air conditioning system. You would not want your car to overheat when you're getting ready to go on a long distance drive. Your body does not want to overheat if it's getting ready to go on a long distance run or if it's getting ready to do something important where you know your internal body temperature is going to rise. So it turns on sweat. It's there to help you. Why do we get jitters or nervous energy? This is one of my favorite ones to explain. If you go back to thinking that you're in a car and you put one foot on the gas, the car's in drive, you put one foot on the brake and one foot is just revving on the gas pedal, that car is just shaking. It's sitting in the driveway, it's sitting on the starting line at the red light and it's shaking. It wants to go. You're pressing on the gas repeatedly, but your other foot's on the brake and you're not letting it go. That's nervous energy. Your brain is sending excess energy to the body saying, I got you, go, go, go. If you're trying to fight, I got you. If you're trying to flight, I got you. And what happens once you take your foot off the brake? All that nervous energy evens out. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us means we jump out of the gate too fast. But guess what? As soon as that race starts, we don't have the jitters anymore because now we're using that energy. So that's why it's also very important to recognize when you have it and recognize, again, going back to that idea of the dimmer switch. Why do we get a dry mouth and stomach issues? That's all digestive processes, butterflies in the stomach, right? Digestion in a fight or flight situation is not important. You can digest the meal, the fuel that you just had later when the saber-tooth tiger is gone, if you even have a later. But for right now, digestion takes energy. It's a subconscious energy. You're not thinking about it, but the brain essentially says, okay, I'm going to redirect the energy that you're using to salivate and digest, and I'm going to redirect it elsewhere in the body. We evacuate, whether it's pee, poop, or puke, right? Excess weight, all of that, just boom, let's get rid of it. So again, your body's just there trying to help you out a little bit.
I like how you call that P3.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And then racing thoughts, right? We get a lot of racing thoughts, and you guys hit it in the chat, right? About doubting and worry and concerning, panic, fear, all of those just kind of mesh into one. Because in that moment, when we think it's a big deal, when we know it's important, it's really, really hard for us to take a step back and really fully trust in everything that we've done, because our brain tends to over-evaluate and over-analyze what's going on in front of us. So saying all of that, and I know you guys hit most of these, are there any others that maybe jogged to mind, no pun intended for this group, but any other symptoms that maybe came to mind that you're curious about before we move on?
Yeah, I think that did it.
Okay.
All right.
Next slide, please. So there are two basic strategies that I would suggest and I would coach anyone on, no matter what they're doing, to help you kind of overcome these jitters and engage the dimmer switch, right? First off, it's all about you need to understand where you operate best. And so think of just like a 1 to 10 scale, and we'll call that energy. 1 would be you just rolled out of bed, and maybe you're still in bed, super tired, borderline lethargic, really, really low energy. 10 is if I asked you to run through a wall right now, you'd be able to run through a wall without missing a beat. And that is just maximum energy, right? Now, I would be willing to bet that none of us are at our best when we're at a 10, and none of us are at our best when we're at a 1. But all of us, and we're very individualistic in this nature, all of us have what I call the Goldilocks zone, right? There's a number in there where you are at your absolute best. And you know, if I could start my race at a 6.5, I know I'd start off strong, confident, proper pacing, everything. Some of you might say, actually, I need to be a little bit more keyed up at the start of the race so that I can kind of overcome some of that doubt. I need to start fast so that I can get some good energy. So maybe you need to be an 8. Others are maybe saying, hey, I'm a slow but steady. If I could just be super calm and be maybe at like a 4, that's where I need to be. So there's that Goldilocks zone for all of us. And the 2 best strategies to get there are through the mind and then through the body. All right. The first one can take a little bit longer. And so this is when, if you're one of the folks that starts to feel these jitters a week or 2 before, or even the night before, and even all the way up to the morning of, and I would even say 10 minutes before the gun goes off, it still works. Start talking to yourself and stop listening to yourself. Too often, we are the passengers in that car. And if you are not the driver of the car, then you are just along for the ride. And before that race, when you have the jitters and all the doubt and concern and the worry starts to come across, you are the passenger. You're just along for the ride. And your brain can go 1,000 different directions at 1,000 miles per hour. So how do we become the driver? Simple. You have 100% control over your thoughts at all times. It might feel like you don't. It might feel like circumstances or people or the weather, whatever it might be, can influence your thoughts, and certainly it can. But at the end of the day, you need to understand and take ownership over what is flowing through your head. We are more than likely going to drift towards thoughts that are more kind of negative by definition. About 80% of the thoughts we have every day tend to be somewhat negative. So we need to be aware of that. How do you talk to yourself? What are you thinking about yourself? And essentially take control, grab the reins, choose the language that you want to have. I talk about the difference between positive and productive. And I just had a phone call with another client about a week and a half ago. And he was really big into talking about positive thinking and how that would help him in a race. And I asked him, I said, are you a dog lover or a cat lover? He said, oh, I love dogs. I said, okay, cool. What's your favorite breed of dog? And he said, German Shepherd. And I said, all right, imagine sitting on the floor and you've got 20 German Shepherd puppies just climbing all over you. They're goofy and clumsy and they're licking your face and everything like that. And he kind of chuckles on the phone call. And I said, that's a pretty positive image, right? And he goes, yeah. And I go, do you think that would actually help you in a race? And he kind of laughed. He said, actually, probably not. He's like, maybe it could help me like shake some negative stuff. And I said, but ultimately it's not productive. And so we want to necessarily stay away from positive thoughts, even though they can be useful. And we want to really frame it around productive thoughts. And I say that because sometimes even a negative thought can be productive. Sometimes a negative thought can be beneficial for us. So don't necessarily shy away from negativity, but just be mindful, is the negativity being productive or is it being counterproductive for me? And then ultimately, another huge thing that I hear is confidence, lacking of confidence, trying to find confidence. I need to feel confident in order to run well. That's a whole nother webinar for a whole nother day. But I can tell you that the best thing that you can do for confidence is be a lawyer, dig up the evidence, present all the evidence for your ability. Think about all the long training runs you did. Think about how, all the long bike rides that you maybe did in the sweltering North Carolina summer heat. And now think, if I could do it then, I can definitely do it now when it's starting to cool down. I ran at an 8:15 pace before. I know that I can run at an 8:15 pace today. Evidence is the #1 killer for a lack of confidence. So even if you need to be more deliberate with it, sit down when you start to, let's say a week before or a night before, you start to get some of those doubts creeping in. Sit down, pen and paper. It's the most tried and true method. And just start being a lawyer and list out the evidence. Present your case for why you absolutely know that you can do it. That's one of the number one things you can do to crush that lack of confidence bug. And then finally, the physical way to control the jitters is to breathe. Diaphragmatic breathing. So breathing down low into the belly and engaging that lower diaphragm. When we do that, when we're able to expand the lower part of our lungs and expand that diaphragm out on the inhale, so like a balloon, you inflate, and then as you exhale, you deflate that balloon. When we do that, we actually stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which some of us are familiar with, but it's the equal opposite to the fight and flight response. So imagine a seesaw in a playground, right? Fight or flight response for most of us is way up high on race day. And our rest and digest, or the parasympathetic, is usually really, really low because we're so keyed up, we're way up here. Well, by doing some of that diaphragmatic breathing, what you start to do is you start to balance it out, just like a seesaw. Now you've got two kids of equal weight. What will not happen, I promise you it will not happen, is that all of a sudden the seesaw goes the other way. And now you're super, totally calm and relaxed. It's not going to happen. Why? Because it's still race day and you're still excited and you still know it's a big deal. So again, this isn't about turning it off, right? It is simply about, let's find that balance. Let's dimmer switch down. When we do that breathing, right, try to control the cadence. Try to do a 4 in, 4 out, 5 in, 5 out. If you feel like your heart rate is racing beyond what you're comfortable with, then just simply extend the exhales a little bit. Do maybe 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, whatever's comfortable for you. But control the cadence, find a good rhythm, and create your calm. Because again, you have control over your physiology. You have control over your thoughts. And so when we're able to do both of these things, we're able to match them up, you are able to get yourself to the Goldilocks zone. You are able to calm yourself down, dim or switch these jitters. And again, I want to go back to that original concept of you can't get rid of them. Your heart rate's still going to be high. Your breathing might still be a little speedy. You might still be sweating. You might still have to go to the bathroom. All of that is fine, because now not only have you just controlled it and it's just a little bit less, so it's a little bit more comfortable for you, but now you can start talking to yourself and telling yourself that these are good things. This is good that I'm going to the bathroom because now I'm going to have less weight. This is good that my heart's kind of beating kind of fast. It's good that I'm sweating. My body's cooling me down. It's getting me ready to go. It's helping me be at my best. Simply thinking and talking about the jitters in that capacity does a massive mindset shift for you and just helps put things in a different perspective.
All right, Brian, we ready to move on to the next slide just because we're pinching on time?
Yeah. Go right ahead.
All right. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So in summary, everyone experiences the jitters differently, but we also experience them pretty similarly as well because we are human beings. They are good for you. And again, they're happening for you, not to you. Embrace the jitters. Think about them differently, and they'll start to feel different for you, more facilitative. Any questions?
Yeah, what about it? How do you feel about music to kind of calm down? Or, we see a lot of Olympic athletes who are playing the race over in their head, and you can kind of see them like physically moving along with, going down their luge or whatever they're going to be doing. So does the strategy work differently for everybody, and how far out do we want to start to practice these strategies?
Yeah, so visualization is what you're talking about when you see the Olympians kind of running through the course and the track. It is the number one strategy that you can do to help supplement physical training. It's hard for endurance events because just the length of the course, but I've coached many athletes in the past to get a video of the race route, or just simply look at the bird's eye view overhead, right? Look at it on a map. That can help with comfort, and it can certainly help with confidence as well, because you can kind of visualize yourself being there before. If you know there's a really monster hill or really a hard crux point in the race, you can visualize yourself attacking that hill, charging that hill, pushing through that crux point. And that can help a lot for on race day when you actually get to that hill. Now you've got this feeling of, I've been here, I've done this, I've conquered it, I know that I can continue on. And music is definitely one of those things that's different strokes for different folks. Can be really helpful for setting a right emotional state, whether that's to calm someone down or to amp them up. But yeah, absolutely. I usually try to go with low tech, and then we expand into high tech. So low tech is simply control your thoughts, control your breathing, because you can package that in portable, and you can take it anywhere. You don't need technology. You could race in the middle of the Sahara Desert and still do those two strategies. But then we can start stacking with technology, right? We can maybe watch videos. We can listen to music. We could do some visualization with some actual props and things like that. So those are all strategies that I would essentially coach someone to stack on top of those two basics of control your thoughts, control your breathing.
So if more questions are not coming in, I've got another one for you. Being a mom, maybe you have your whole family with you. Maybe you have an entourage of friends. Maybe you have people who are with you who don't necessarily understand what you're going through. Is there a way that we can communicate to them what we need and how we're acting and how we're not being rude and what to expect, or how they can potentially help?
Yeah, so turn it into, especially for younger kids, if they're old enough to kind of understand, you can give them jobs to do. And hey, for like my daughter who's 5, I need you to remind daddy to take deep breaths, right? So you're involving them into the process, but they're also there to kind of coach you up a little bit. If they're older, then it's having an honest, conversation with them and saying, look, the night before a race, I need my space. I know you want to hang out and maybe it's movie night, but I need my space. The morning of, if you're the type of person that just wants to be blinders on and left alone, then that's just the honest conversation that you do have with them. But if they're younger, they're not really necessarily going to be able to understand that. So involving them in clever ways is one of the best ways to make them feel like they're still a part of it, make them feel like they're helping you, and then they're more likely to kind of back off and give you a little bit of distance as well.
And how about for adults and friends who they may not understand your needs, or that you need to be quiet, or they don't want you getting in their face taking pictures, or without stepping on any toes and still staying married or engaged or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, and I know it's kind of tricky, but it does come back to that honest conversation and telling them, like, look, this is not something that I'm just doing for fun. Like, this is something I'm doing because I'm passionate about it. I want to be good at it. And I know this is what I need in order for me to be at my best. And here's how you can help me go out and be my best. I know that you are doing this from a place of love and enthusiasm, but on race day, it's not about you. This is about me. And here's how I need you to help me. Those are tough conversations. They're certainly not easy, but in the long run, having that honest conversation, framing it around just your preparation is another way to, again, just kind of help them understand a little bit more versus just stepping on toes.
Can you give an example of some of the productive thoughts that you have coached people to say to themselves?
Yeah, it's super tough because everyone's different. And usually this is a homework assignment that a lot of folks just kind of do on their own. And you discovered these thoughts in real world training, going on those long runs in the heat, whatever it might be, and just discovering what is it that actually works for me. One of the most simple yet most effective ones is just simply the phrase of "I've got this." I coached that one up for a lot of folks, including a lot of the military guys that I used to coach, because "I've got this" wasn't just a rah rah, fake it till you make it type thing. it was grounded again in that evidence that we spoke about earlier. And it was, okay, well, when you say I've got this, what does that really mean? Oh, well, I think about all the training that I've done. I think about all the time that I've put into this. I think about all the preparation that's gotten me to this point. And so even just that simple phrase of I've got this, and saying it repetitively if you need to, because just saying it once probably isn't going to do anything for anybody, and it might help you in that moment. So saying things like that. And an example of how a negative thought can even be productive is had a client about a month ago talking with them, and they started calling themselves, don't be a little bitch, or don't be a little baby, whatever it might have been, when they started to feel tired. And I asked him, I said, well, when you say that to yourself, what happens? And he goes, it kind of kicks me in the butt a little bit, and it fires me up. And I said, well, then it's productive for you, right? And so that right there is an example of, by definition, don't be a little baby or don't be a little bitch.
Mm-hmm.
That's negative. And a lot of people might say, don't think like that. It's negative thinking. But for that individual, in certain contexts, it was motivating and it was productive. So again, I would suggest, and I would coach everyone, the next time you have that workout on the calendar and you're looking at it and you're already thinking, holy smokes, that's going to be a brutal workout. That's an amazing opportunity to find what's the language that comes in your head that tries to defeat you in the workout. It's important to recognize that so that you are more aware of it. But then also, what's the language that's coming into your head that's helping you get through that workout? Once you capture that, then you can build on it and start to create your own productive language.
Very cool. So just so you guys know, as Brian is talking about coaching people, he is available. You can book him online, super easy. You go to our website, theenduranceedge.com, and when you click on Sport Psychology, there's packages and there's just individual sessions. I highly recommend, and it's really rather affordable, to have ongoing touches with him. So, because he's talking about homework and things like that, that it's great to go practice these things, come back and readjust the strategy. It just makes at least the coaching from the endurance perspective here and the team approach that much more effective, that you're hearing it from multiple people. And whether you're in endurance sports or not, maybe you're a golfer, maybe you're a basketball player, or I know you've worked with a lot of youth athletes, Brian, too, with us. So you can definitely go online and either shoot him an email or book a session with him online. And any final things that you want to send us away with, Brian?
I think I covered it. Just again, remember, you have the control over the jitters. Ultimately, they're happening for you. So change the perspective on those. Start to practice those two strategies. Control the mind, control the body. Figure out what really works for you. Capture it, and then start building on it.
Awesome. You've got this, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, I think we've got a quick question, then we'll tie up loose ends. Did you see the chat?
It just says thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thank
Thank you
guys.
all. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Brian, thank you. This was fantastic. So for those of you watching at home, I will send you this information specifically. If you are watching this later on our YouTube channel, or if you know somebody who wanted to see this and they didn't get the chance to, this will be on our YouTube channel. We post every Friday. And like I said, if you want to get in touch with Brian, you can email him, or his contact information is on our website, or you can book a session with him. And otherwise, Brian, thank you so much. And I'm sure we will touch base with you again over the next couple of months. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Awesome. Thanks.